for the Red Sox history with the ownership and how they've handled their managers on the diamond, I'd say that they're patient, but they're also decisive. And so when they took over the team, for the 2002 season, it was just kind of like the sit back and assess. Let's see where this organization is. So they had Grady Little, who was a holdover from the Jimmy Williams regime, and he was unceremoniously shown the exit in either 99 or 2000, and then the 2001 was a complete disaster. So they let Grady Little get his first run as a manager, and the team had success under him. In 2003, they make the playoffs for the first time in 4 years. However, he just had a very, very laissez-faire managerial style, and my dad and I would always make fun of his post-game press conferences because he just kind of sat back there and he was, a good old boy, and he said, well, when, the Boston media fairly tough and asking, specific questions, it's just like, well, the boys went out and played a hard game today, and we just got to get back at it tomorrow. And so that act was a little frustrating, especially, for a franchise that hadn't won a World Series in, 86 years going into 2004. So in 2003, he makes a fatal error, leaves Pedro Martinez, and famously Game 7, Yankee Stadium, and I think it was the 8th inning by then. The Red Sox have a 3-run lead. Pedro, by that point in his career, the numbers they showed after 100 pitches, his effectiveness just dropped off a cliff for, a Hall of Fame level pitcher. Grady Little says, like, nope, you got this one, big boy. Gives him a tap on the ass, walks back to the dugout. Red Sox lose on an Aaron Boone walk-off home run. And then at that point, it was like, the Red Sox are never going to win the World Series, no matter how fucking close it gets. Next year, they bring in Terry Francona. Francona was met with some skepticism because he was a fairly young manager at the time, but his first job in Philadelphia was a disaster in the late 90s. And, Philadelphia was Philadelphia then. It was really Philadelphia then. So Francona comes in, and I think he was granted a long leash because they have a new GM, and Theo Epstein had taken over in 2003. He wanted to grow with his new manager. If the Red Sox ended up getting swept in that 2004 American League Championship Series, that seat probably would have gotten pretty hot under Francona's ass. But, Francona goes on to become the most successful manager in franchise history. But the team, I think Francona was also a little hands-off with the team, and he wasn't really fire and brimstone. He just expected that at that point, the Red Sox were spending money and had a very, very good player development operation led by Epstein. And so he just, rolled the balls out, and they got to work. In 2011, he had different guys come into the mix. Adrian Gonzalez was kind of brought in to be the next franchise cornerstone, transitioning away from Manny Ramirez, and an aging David Ortiz, who, obviously Ortiz stuck around a lot longer, but, he was definitely on the back nine. He almost got released in 2010, which seems crazy. Yeah. And so the team quits on Francona. They show up fat and out of shape, have a bad April, then turn on the Jets because they were a very, very talented roster in 2011. Best team in baseball, but from May to August, go 9-20 something. In September, blow up a 10-game lead, fall out of the playoffs. So Francona has to go. I was upset to see Francona go because I thought the team quit on him. But so
I'd say from like this perspective too of Liverpool, Francona's probably the closest like 1-to-1 to Klopp, in the sense that like he was the most successful manager. He broke essentially that curse, so to speak, that the team faced, and he was really, like, to a degree, like a cultural icon within like the team's like aura, if you will.
For sure,
because of his ability to like break that curse.
Right. And then so this is where that decisiveness for the Red Sox comes in. It's like, nope, you're out. Like, and then they're going to leak BS stories about, his, pill popping problem to the Boston Globe. It was ugly. And then so to make matters worse, now they're like, oh, now we need to change philosophies here. We need a real hard ass in the manager's office. So they go get, the caricature of a hard ass in Bobby Valentine, and because he was friends with Larry Lucchino. And their new GM, Ben Cherington, had picked Ben Cherington wanted Dale Swain. Larry Lucchino said, F that, we're going with Bobby Valentine. And it was a disaster from the start. The players were used to a very hands-off guy, and that's not who Bobby Valentine is. Team was 41-41, I think, at the All-Star break, and then went down the tubes the rest of the season. And my favorite moment from there was one bright spot, and that was Pedro Siriaco filling in a shortstop at the end of the season. He was I left him off our random baseball player list, but Pedro Siriaco, that's a name for sure.
Oh, I remember him.
So then they had to go back to the old regime kind of and bring back Francona's pitching coach and John Farrell. And John Farrell ran things like Terry Francona, but he also he wasn't Terry Francona in that he wasn't authentic, and
he's very he tried to be as player manager as he could, though, because he used to manage the Jays. He's very much so like that.
Right, but his whole thing was he wanted to make things sound more complicated than they actually were. For instance, his classic one was, I think it was Mookie Betts, or whoever was diving after a ball, and then he was out for a few games with bruised ribs or something, and then he's explaining that when he impacted the ground. It's no, he fell and he fell on his rib cage. He landed bad. Just say that. You don't have to say impacted the ground. So Farrell was he was he was a dumb person who acted like he was a smart person. And so he got a bunch of hungry veterans in 2013, and they go on some probable run to the World Series, and the Red Sox stole a World Series from the Detroit Tigers that year. The Red Sox had no business winning that World Series, and the Tigers just had a bad ALCS and they got bounced. So then the Red Sox management, they think, oh, now we have all the answers. We just signed hungry and washed up veterans, and we don't pay pitchers. Yeah, just got them back-to-back last place finishes, but they stuck by Farrell. And I think the Farrell, this is the one thing that kind of extenuated that. He went out for cancer treatment in 2015. And so everyone's like, yeah, John Farrell should probably get fired, but you can't fire a manager who went out with cancer. And so they had to bring Farrell back. And so the team Farrell wasn't ready to transfer the team over to the new core yet. And, he jerked around players like Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers and a lot of the young players. And so it was his time had come and gone. And then the Red Sox, they found Alex Cora. And Cora had played for them, so he wasn't unfamiliar to them, but came from the Astros. The Astros had, been building and building and building. And he was, the bench coach for a lot of that. So after their World Series in 2017, they bring in Alex Cora, and then it was kind of all systems go. And so I'll say this: I think Cora is one of the best managers in baseball right now. So I think they do have an eye at they have an eye. Yeah, the Red Sox ownership has an eye for identifying the right guy at the right time. It's just a matter of, are they not going to shoot themselves in the dick when things go slightly awry? So, and I'm glad they brought Cora back after suspension. So, and he didn't do it as a manager. He did it, he was with the Astros, the whole cheating thing. So, but yeah, I'm happy with where they are with Cora right now, and I just hope that they can build a roster that meets what he needs as a manager. And when you give him the talent, he's a winner for sure.